We welcome you in the Sam and Cole podcast. Hey, we're not as, systematic in the off season, but when things happen, hey, we're there to go for it. And there have been some things happening with regard to free agency, Sam. 6 Jaguars signees, and you were at the press conference today. I'll get to my point about where they are in free agency here in a bit, but with the most salary cap room in the NFL, they have certainly been active from a quantity standpoint in free agency.
That's true. And Dave Caldwell said today that they had 5 guys targeted, and they got 3 of them. They got Thomas, they got Odrick, and they got Parnell. They did not get Randall Cobb, and they who re-signed there, and they did not get
Devin McCourty.
Devin McCourty, who re-signed with the Patriots. So, the 5 guys that they looked at, and you look at the similarities between that group again, Cole. Same kind of thing. Guys in their mid-20s, guys in their second contracts, guys who have performed pretty well, but you're expecting them to take the next step. Guys who are guys who fit in the locker room, fit into that culture. Thomas is maybe a little bit of the exception because he's a bona fide star.
Right. I mean, he's the only one of the elite guys. When we looked at who the really top free agents were going to be,
right?
I think we got to a dozen or maybe 13 guys. Some of them did not become available because they re-signed with their own teams, but he's the only one of that group that the Jaguars, to this point, have landed. And as we're recording this, there's nothing yet out official on DeMarco Murray, who would be in that category as well.
Who, by the way, was Sam Bradford's roommate at Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, yeah. And Aaron Colvin's teammate.
Teammate at Oklahoma. So, you're right. They clearly didn't feel like Ndamukong Suh was a good fit, and if you look at the contract that he signed, I mean, that's going to hamstring the Dolphins for a while, and if he doesn't produce at some unbelievable level, he's going to have to produce at a very, very high level and stay not suspended and not be a nut occasionally on the field. There's no denying the guy.
Occasionally he can be a nut, they'd be okay. He can't repeatedly be a nut.
Can't overly be a nut because that means that you're out of the next game or whatever. So, he was a guy that clearly they looked at and moved on and let the Dolphins spend $114 million with, what is it, $60 million guaranteed? It's something tied up with the Dolphins through 2019. Darrelle Revis is getting paid again, going back to the Jets. Don't know if the Jaguars wanted to, rent a player with him.
No.
But, maybe not. Who would you have liked to have seen them kind of acquire that they didn't?
Well,
who actually became a free agent, didn't re-sign with their own team?
Suh, but I agree with you on the price tag. I still think he's a special player, though. I mean, I think he can be a dominant player.
Absolutely agree.
Justin Houston
stayed with the Chiefs, right?
Yeah, and then I saw there was at one point they were talking about the sign and trade situation with Justin Houston, which didn't make any sense to me. But
thought that only happened in the NBA.
Right, exactly. So, and it has been tough to follow everything in the NBA or in the NFL free agency. This year, it seems like there have been, there's been more movement with everything. Maybe it's just you get overwhelmed picking up your phone, looking at Twitter and everything else as it rolls around.
By the way, aren't there rules? There's supposed to be rules. I mean, it was supposed to start yesterday at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, and it really started Saturday when they had that 3-day negotiation period. I mean, by the way, if you're in the NFL, we're going to have a 3-day negotiation period. Just start it.
That's because, and what happens, in case people don't understand why that happens, agents put it out there.
Yeah.
Okay, agents want it out there so other guys will sign with them. Agents are the best source of information. So, that's that's why it didn't seem like there were any rules this year. But so my overall thought is Thomas is a star. The other guys have to kind of emerge from. I had friends in Dallas tell me, Parnell is a backup, no more than that. Well, at that point in his career, maybe he was. Maybe in order for him to justify the contract, he has to emerge as the starting right tackle who is a permanent fixture there and is fairly dominant. It's not like, oh, well, we could play him or we could play Austin Pastors.
Yeah.
No, he's got to step in there and be that guy. So, two guys on offense. Defensively, they sign a safety that they expect to emerge again, not a guy who's been a full-time starter. He's supposed to be better. They sign a cornerback who wasn't really a full-time starter, got an opportunity to start because of injury, played well when called on, but he'll have to emerge. Linebacker who only got playing time when a Pro Bowl All-Pro player in front of him got hurt, but certainly played well, but he'll have to emerge. And a former first-round draft pick in Odrick who I think can play at the level that he's playing, and the way the Jaguars use their defensive line, I think that he is, all anybody wanted to talk about was that he's not a good fit for a 4-3. In talking to that guy today, he's got plenty of confidence, he's got plenty of skill, he's got plenty of smarts, and whatever they ask him to do, he'll adjust to it, and he'll do just fine. He's not a star, though. So
right. They really one star.
My final point, Cole, is on that is that they have stocked the shelves,
yeah.
and now that's all set up. Those guys make you a respectable football team. Jaguars, at this point, every one of them is expected to start. That's 6 new starters. Stars win games and win championships for you. You take Tom Brady off the Patriots, they're still a respectable football team that probably contends for a playoff spot every year. You put Tom Brady on that team, they win and they contend for championships. The Jaguars have not said yet, and I don't know, it may take you and I to figure this out. Do they expect those stars to emerge from the current roster? Guys like Bortles, like Hearns, or
Allen
Lee,
Robinson, or
Robinson, or they expect Cyprian to make a quantum leap. Stars are going to win it, and if they're expecting those guys to take that step, we can watch it. If they're not, still a year away.
Well, and I had some similar thoughts, Sam, as I was looking through this. By the way, the other guy who I would have liked to have seen them sign was Mike Iupati, the guard. I thought he would have been a substantial upgrade on the line. But
who did move teams?
He did. He went from San Francisco to Arizona.
Right.
So before free agency began, I was looking at Sue, either one of Julius or Demaryius Thomas, whoever the Broncos didn't keep, Iupati, and Justin Houston. Those are my top 4 guys who I thought the Jaguars could have benefited from adding. But you're absolutely right. I think that the moves that were made this week by the Jaguars, if they were made with if you had just started the clock last week with no particular expectation, with no thought about the amount of salary cap space, with no thought about the lack of success the last 2 years with this regime, with no thought about how much the Jaguars fan base is clamoring for a winner, you'd say, all right, they improved the team. It looks like they got better. They improved some spots. They got younger in some spots. Thomas can be a real impact player, and these other guys like Scuda or like whoever can help upgrade spots that needed to be upgraded. The Patriots, by the way, you talk about their free agency approach. They are a team that they just look to upgrade. Hey, is this guy better than that guy we have now? Okay, well, it could be an incremental upgrade. They're fine with it.
Right.
Whereas the Packers, I think, have signed as many free agents as the Jaguars did this year. The Packers have signed since in the last 5 years. So they grow their guys. I actually think that I'm kind of split mind on this. On one hand, I think, hey, it looks like the Jaguars did some things to get better, and I think they, solid additions. But if you ask me now, based on what's happened to this point, how much better have the Jaguars gotten? It all goes back to me is how much better does Blake Bortles get? Because even if the other guys just do, your normal year 1 to year 2 or year 2 to year 3 improvements of the guys who they've drafted, if Bortles takes a step from up and down rookie to solid emerging veteran star, then the Jaguars can be a 7 or 8, 9 win team. If he takes the step of, okay, he's getting better but still has a long way to go, then you're looking at 4 or 5 wins again. So
Yeah.
it's remarkable that all the money they spent, I think they spent $175 million in free agency.
$74 million guaranteed.
Yeah. And they may have, again, this is in my perception, gone from, a team that was going to be a 4-win team to a team that's going to be a 6-win team.
I think it's interesting that Odrick said the way they talked to me and how they pursued me, they act like they want to win and they want to win now. And Shad Khan said last month that you deserve better as fans. So I think that there is some expectation in the meeting rooms there, because Khan doesn't really get involved at all. He doesn't want to be involved. He steps into the room, he listens to what these guys have to say, and he says, I understand. Or he says, we need to win some games, guys. All right, this has to, and I think that's what he said in this instance. This team's won 9 games in the last 3 years, and they need Bortles to stay healthy and be as you mentioned, an emerging kind of player who builds on what happened last year. Now, if he takes what happened last year and plays at the level, at the high end of how he played last year to start this year, now we're talking about something.
Yeah.
But if you see the same kind of peaks and valleys that you had in your rookie year, then you're right. It becomes a kind of an ongoing process. This team is built, I think, to win some games this year. I think they'd like to get DeMarco Murray. Murray knows what the offer is out there, and that's a pretty big statement that they're willing to spend probably $7 million a year to bring in a running back who the running back position is not particularly valued in the league, and not even in what they do. And so you add him to the roster, all of a sudden you add another potential star, as he showed this year. He had more carries and more yards than Emmitt Smith had in any one season when he played for the Cowboys. I mean, now what that also means is that he's getting used up. And
he didn't have a lot of carries before.
Before that, what I'm saying is that now's the time to get somebody like that. Yeah, you don't get him in the next contract, you get him in this one. So if they don't get him because he wants to go to the Eagles and Sam Bradford was his roommate and he called Chip Kelly, or wherever he wants to go. If he wants to sign back in Dallas, that's fine too. But the question is that what do they do at these positions that they did not address in free agency? What do they do at running back? Do they try to sign C.J. Spiller, or do they wait and draft Melvin Gordon? Because I don't think that Todd Gurley will be there. At wide receiver, do they still try to sign somebody who can because there's really not anybody there who you would call a number one guy that's worth a lot of money, or do you decide whether Kevin White or Amari Cooper is worth one of those picks that you probably could get them somewhere in the top 10 and not have to spend the third pick on them?
So let me ask you this question. As it stands right now, after the first wave of free agency, where are the Jaguars' holes? Where do they need to improve, in your mind? Where do they need to fix? To me, still free safety.
Really?
They don't have a proven free safety.
Well, I mean, they're bringing a guy in, paying him a bunch of money, and
right.
he's going to be the starter.
I get it, and I don't think they can fill it. I don't think they can find a starter at free safety in the draft right out of the gate.
Right.
But we'll see if that transition happens in the right way. I still think they have some needs on offensive line. Again, I know you're going to laugh and smirk when I say this. You still don't know for sure about left tackle.
You do not know for sure, but you got to play that guy there one more year.
I'm with you. I'm just saying this is where the holes are, and maybe the answer is there, but it's not a proven. That spot is not set.
No matter who you bring in at this point, it's not an established veteran. It's a guy who is going to have to learn the game as well.
Center, same situation.
And remember, Blanco was a 6th-round pick. I mean, this guy wasn't a first or third round. He's a 6th-round pick. So I think when they put him in there, they knew he was a project.
Sure, and he may be that. Again, unproven, not. And kind of the point I'm making here is that there are a lot of these decisions that have to be made in the offseason based on a faith that the coaching staff and the general manager and the personnel department has that they can look into the crystal ball and know that that guy is going to go from what we have seen to what he's going to be. And the best general managers have the clearest crystal balls and can see when that second-year guy or that first-year guy is going to make that next step. And so you don't have to worry about addressing it. So you know in advance, okay, that guy, he's there. We're there with him, or we're not there with him, and
they clearly feel that way in a lot of positions. Starting lineup for the Jaguars: Bortles, tailback, unknown.
Probably Denard Robinson.
But what I'm saying is that unknown because they're still in the sweepstakes for somebody. Who knows? Jokel, Beatles, Blanco, Linder, and Parnell. Okay? And Thomas. Lewis will play a bunch. Lee, Robinson, Earns will be on the team. Right? So you got those. Yes. So you got those 3 guys. Defensively, if you got to figure that Ziggy Hood's got to make the team.
Probably
up front. You hope that Sendera comes back healthy. You hope that Roy Miller comes back healthy. Andre Branch probably has to make the team.
Yeah, I think he's in pretty good shape, though.
Yeah. Pusluzny, you hope he comes back healthy, and if he does, it's a plus.
Telvin Smith is in.
Telvin Smith is in. The new guy from San Francisco, Scuda. The slot cover is going to be Colvin, and then you've got Alan Ball, Demetrius McRae,
Gratz,
and House. Okay, so there's those 4 guys, and then the safeties will be Cyprian and Sergio.
Yep.
So I mean that's kind of the starting lineup they're looking at. With the 3rd pick though, I mean Leonard Williams' pro day today apparently was so impressive that nobody can imagine anybody passing on him.
Yeah.
That he may. He
may go number 1 instead of Jameis. Maybe.
Right, exactly.
It's not going to happen. Somebody's going to get either Tampa's going to take him or somebody's going to move up and take Jameis number 1. It's going to happen. But I don't. Again, we talked about this several months ago. I don't think Leonard Williams falls to 3.
Does he? Does he possibly get past the Titans? Do the Jaguars have enough picks and do they think enough of him to try to move up to get him?
That would be the intriguing question. I mean, that's
if you trade with Tampa, because Titans aren't going to trade with you. You trade with Tampa Bay to get in front of them to get him. Tampa Bay now might miss out on Jameis because if Winston is there, the Titans take him.
Right.
Tough spot. That 2-3 is the fascinating part of the draft this year. So
if Marcus Mariota had a better arm and didn't play in such a college-specific kind of offense, the Jaguars would be spot at number 3 would be a much better spot to draft from.
They'd be in these spots. And I don't know what Wisenhunt. Who knows what he's going to do? He's been very close to the vest, and he has not either supported or said that Mettenberg was his guy.
Yeah, we know who it's not going to be.
Yeah, the currently retired Jake Locker.
Yeah, what a life, by the way.
26 years old. So, I think it's fascinating that in free agency, and all the positive things that they talked about the team last year, they have now in one day replaced 25% of the starters from last year.
And one day. Despite that, and despite the $175 million, and despite the 6 players, I'm still a little bit underwhelmed by the Jaguars free agency haul based on my expectations and what they potentially could have done.
Well, I'm not. I am. They kind of hit it right. They hit it right in the forehead. I thought with what they were going to do.
Now they get Murray. That changed my mind, by the way.
Right. Okay. The kind of player that. So Kevin just handed me a note that said nothing finalized in the Murray situation tonight, but he will schedule a visit soon, apparently. So, he's going to take his time. I've got some friends in Dallas. One of them approached him last night at the Mavs game, and Murray very politely said, hey, I'm just here to enjoy the game, okay? And declined to talk about it. And that's fine with me. Hey, it's kind of a neat thing. Our needs are not where the players' needs are.
Right, so, clearly. Hey, but we've talked a lot of football. I do want to talk a little basketball because we're into March Madness here. And for the first time since 1986, a school in the city of Jacksonville is going to be a part of March Madness. What a thing for UNF. And happening in this kind of coincidentally, happening the same year that March Madness is in Jacksonville, this for the third time. Now they won't play in Jacksonville, but
do you think not?
No, they could by the rules, but by the tendency, they wouldn't want to give a low seed like that any kind of benefit over a higher seed. That would be too dramatic of a home court possibility.
And what if they brought him in to play Kentucky?
It wouldn't matter. You could play
right, exactly.
Yeah. But I think they're going to wind up as one of those games in Dayton. That's what
I wrote a short story in 1986 called 24 Hours in Dayton because I flew up there on a
Tell me it was Braniff.
No, it was not Braniff Airlines. But I flew up there on Delta with photographer Ramon Hernandez. Stayed at the NCR Hotel up there, which is by the golf course. And they gave me the presidential suite because I guess it was the only room left. It was funny. The game was at noon the next day. We got in late. The game was at the noon game the next day against Temple. JU lost like 54-53, 57-54.
And
Otis Smith, Ronnie Murphy, that game. Temple played a slow-down game, and JU didn't have enough guys to hit an outside shot. Did our job, did the 6 o'clock news, got back on an airplane to come home, and the exact same flight crew was on that airplane coming back to Jacksonville. So it was 24 hours in Dayton. And they love basketball there, and they do a great job, and they host these play-in games every year. And if UNF goes to the play-in game, as they say, good on you.
Yeah, and they've got a chance to win a game in the NCAA tournament, and it still counts as an NCAA tournament.
And by the way, last weekend when they played USC Upstate at home, electric atmosphere, sellout, obviously, and this sounds so rudimentary, but it is so true. There's only one time that you win your first championship.
Yep.
There's only one time as a college student that your team wins something big at home like that. And I just think that's so special. There's only one time that Matthew Driscoll can win his first Coach of the Year award, which he won this year. And I just think that with that program and having seen it from its birth, not from its infancy, from its birth, and the people who have coached there and tried and done a lot of things, clearly John Delaney as the president has given Lee Moon and Matthew Driscoll more support that's necessary to get the job done. And Driscoll has done a good job bringing in the kind of player that will come to UNF and is a step above or a half step above the players who are going to other schools in that area. I mean, a kid like Bo Beach who has grown a few inches, has matured very well, and that's the kind of player that you have to hit on and at UNF and at JU, for that matter, in order to be competitive.
And by the way, I think we are a year or two away from having some really good competitive JU-UNF matchups because
Right.
like Tony Jasic, I can tell you, as you know, I still do the PA at a lot of the JU games. He's a really good coach.
Good basketball coach. Absolutely.
Yeah. And if he gets some players in there, and he's had a few. Corey Babineau, the point guard's a very good player. But if he gets some players in there, if he can recruit, and I think he can, as a young, energetic, good-looking guy, I think he's going to be able to. I think we're getting close to having, for the first time, a real substantial level of basketball rivalry, not just because it's crosstown, but because both teams are really, really good. And
you wonder if UNF stays good, does Driscoll stay there?
Right.
I mean, that seems to be the history of that. But I mean, it's just so much fun, and congratulations to them and to him and to all the things that they've accomplished. I wasn't sure they were going to beat Upstate. I tell you the truth, I don't think they were sure they were going to beat Upstate.
Right. And it was interesting.
Having lost to them in the race.
I was at the Armada match. It was going on. It started, near the end of the UNF game. About the same number of people, totally different atmosphere. There were about 6,000 at the Armada. It felt like a Sunday afternoon baseball game, by the way.
Right.
But when the announcement was made over the PA,
not by you?
No, Arthur Crofton is the public address announcer.
Okay.
So, we were there, and I was.
Got a lot of accents for the Armada, obviously.
Oh yeah, we got it filled up.
They got Scottish, they got English,
Argentinian, Colombian,
South American, Central Americans. Yeah, they got everything.
But a lot of applause, and I think that's cool because Jacksonville has generally not have a high expectation, but Jacksonville has generally been a stinky college basketball town. But for when the NCAA tournament comes, and Florida plays a game here and there, there's not a lot of buzz or heat in college basketball in Jacksonville typically, right? This is not Lawrence or Chapel Hill or Durham.
Right. No. And you mentioned that this is the third time that they've been here, and people are like, why do they keep going back there?
No.
That's the typical. That's the typical people who don't know anything about anything who think they know everything about everything.
Right. Ask Mike Krzyzewski why they keep coming back.
Yeah, exactly. And the guys who are staying at the Ritz and at the Ponte Vedra Club and coming in and everything is taken care of and everything's really well done down there at the arena. And that's one of those things that a new arena made the difference.
Without a doubt.
In that happening. The other thing we want to mention is that Peter Bregan Jr. decided that it was time to sell the Jacksonville Suns. And this was a story that I first talked about mildly back in December. And just out of respect for Pedro and my close relationship with him and his family for so long, I didn't want to kind of get into a lot of the details. But he really wanted to make the announcement at his Christmas party, which was December 17th. But because he likes to do that kind of stuff around family and friends and include a lot of the longtime supporters, whether it's somebody like Jane Green from Swisher or Billy Nimnick or whomever. Those kind of people he wants to have involved in those things. But they couldn't get the paperwork done. They just couldn't get the whole deal finished. So he figured the beginning of spring training probably was the easiest thing. Shad Khan wanted to buy the club. And
is that right?
Oh, yeah. And talked to Pedro several times about it. And when Ken Babby finalized the figure, the price, which has been reported at $25 million, I was kind of surprised that Khan let the deal go because he would like to kind of start in that west side of that east side of Jacksonville and kind of move to the west in terms of, refurbishing and helping rebuild, including the shipyards, clearly. But, the team was valued at substantially less than that. People thought that it might go for $20 million, but Babby was willing to pay top dollar because he owns the team in Akron. He's going to own a couple of other teams here in the next couple of years as well. So he feels like he can make money doing that, and so Khan let the deal go. I was a little surprised that Khan didn't kind of get more involved in it, but clearly the number was something that he didn't think. It's not like he couldn't have afforded it.
Right.
What's a few million between friends? But here's a businessman, making a business decision about the long-term growth and value of of a franchise.
Yeah, and so Pedro will have Pedro's victory lap, right? He'll have
This year.
the last lap around the Southern League, and boy, two thoughts are number one. I think he and his father bought the team for $350,000.
$330. $330. Yeah.
That's a pretty good return on investment.
Yeah.
And for a guy who enjoys, golf and fishing, and who has spent a lot of years and a lot of hours around the ballpark, Pedro's going to have a heck of a retirement.
Yeah, and the Iliopoulos family, who owned the Jacksonville franchise before the Bragans, good people in their own right, good owners in their own right. A little bit different time in Jacksonville's history, that's for sure. They also owned several other franchises, which, by the way, were all named the Suns. I think up in Frederick, they were known as the Frederick Suns, and they owned 3 or 4 different franchises and ran them and marketed them in Jacksonville. But the Bragans brought a whole different kind of touch here, and clearly the family name, their history in baseball, and the article that I wrote on News4 Jackson and Sam Sportsline talked about the kindness and the humility that they generally had when people would come by to say hello and thanks for being at the ballpark. There was a common touch there. It was a family-owned business that they made sure that somebody was there every night. I can't remember a night that either Senior or Pedro wasn't at the ballpark.
Yep.
And that's a hard,
most of the time, both of them, by the way.
Right. That's a hard thing to sustain, but that's what made the difference in that franchise, is that when you went there, you felt like, oh, this is Jacksonville's team. This is us. Oh, there's Pedro. There's Senior. There's Mrs. Bragan. We're all going to be sitting here watching baseball. And to me, that makes the difference. I hope Ken Babby is able to replicate that in some regard, because I think perhaps more in Jacksonville than a lot of other places, that's an important thing at the ballpark.
All right, just two comments on what you just said there. Number one, that type of thing is important in Jacksonville, and baseball lends itself to that.
That's a very good point.
Very well, much more than arena football or some other things, for instance. So because of the pace of things, you you stop by, see Pedro, say hi, and the whole thing. The other thing is, and I think that Pedro would probably have to agree with this, they've benefited tremendously by the baseball grounds being built.
Oh.
To go from Old Wolfson Park to the baseball ground. From an attendance number, they got a great lease situation with the city and have a wonderful facility to hold the games. I mean, so that
the first of its kind at that size. If you look at when that ballpark was built now, 12 years ago, that was before a lot of intimate ballparks were being built. Like Camden Yards is the first of its kind.
Yeah. Louisville had one that was sort of between the Suns and Camden Yard type, and
baseball grounds, very much the same thing. By the way, I want to show you, those of you who are watching, there's the championship ring that I was able to purchase and ended up. Every time they've won a title, I've ended up getting a ring, and I bought Kevin and Matt rings as well. So that's kind of neat.
There you go.
That's fun. Yeah.
The only ring I have is from the JU baseball team, the one the Atlantic Sun tournament.
There you go.
On the games. That's my one and only, and I never wear it because I didn't play on the team. I did,
Right.
I may bust it out once a decade, and that's about it.
Exactly. But this is nice. I have rings from all 6 titles, and I have them at home that I'm trying to figure out, how do you display that?
Well, here's how you display it. You need another thumb.
There you go. That's right.
All right, that'll do it for the Sam and Cole podcast. You can follow Sam on Twitter at Sam Kavares. Follow me on Twitter at Cole Pepper. And subscribe to this podcast via iTunes or Stitcher. And if you enjoy it, please leave a comment and rate us there on iTunes. Always happy to see the comments there on iTunes, as we will deliver these podcasts, well, in the off season when things are important and when we get when we can coordinate. That's the other thing. Coordinating schedules has become a challenge sometimes for us too.
According to ESPN, again, this is Wednesday night. DeMarco Murray flying to Philadelphia to meet with the Eagles on Thursday.
All right. Well, we'll keep a close eye on that. That would be for me, not a game changer, a grade changer for the Jaguars in free agency. It would go from all right, pretty good, to hey, look at this. You can figure out whatever letter is associated.
I like the fact that they're even in the game.
Yeah, I think it shows something.
Something different. Yeah.
Yep. Now, they were in the game last year for Alex Mack. Same kind of approach. So that is a step in the right direction. All right, that'll do it for the Sam and Cole podcast. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you next time.